all know Cliff Burton over here? Everyone, hi Cliff, how you doing?
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today, we're counting down our picks for the top 10 bands from the 1980s. We've had some major tragedy in their history. We're including some bands that started in the 1970s but still had an identification with the 80s.
Talk to me, darling.
Number 10. AC/DC. Losing your lead singer is the type of blow that the vast majority of bands cannot survive.
She was taking her time, I was losing my mind, there was nothing that she wouldn't do.
For the early era AC/DC, Bon Scott encapsulated everything that was great about the band. He was charismatic, boisterous, and a little wild. But his rock star lifestyle unfortunately caught up with him at the age of 33.
Seems like a touch, it takes too much.
Plans were already in place for what would eventually become the Back in Black album, but they were derailed when Scott died of alcohol poisoning after a night out in London.
Oh, look at me run.
The core of AC/DC had tragically left the building, and yet they decided that Bon would want them to continue. So they hired Brian Johnson and somehow, some way, rebounded with even more commercial success. Number 9. The Replacements. After parting ways with their guitarist Bob Stinson due to either a power struggle or his alcohol use disorder, depending on who you ask, the Replacements were already wearing themselves thin. When Stinson passed away a few years later due to organ failure, the band had already imploded due to interpersonal tensions as well as alcohol use disorders. They famously broke up on stage in 1991 through a very theatrical performance that saw each band member slowly replaced by their personal roadie, one by one. But for all the success they had, it always seemed like they were a little too volatile and unpredictable to truly make it big.
I can't wait.
Number 8. Germs. The Germs epitomized everything that was good and bad about the early punk scenes of the late 70s and early 80s.
Give me this, give me that, yeah.
The band's wild live shows had their lead singer Darby Crash as their center point. And as time went on, instances of violence in the crowd or against the police became more common.
I was never quite.
Eventually, Crash was left totally burned out due to his lifestyle and substance use disorder. He decided to take his own life by deliberately overdosing in 1980, passing away on December 7th of that year. Although his death was completely overshadowed by the murder of John Lennon the following day, it should have come as no surprise that the Germs had no hope of surviving this type of setback. Number 7. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble followed up their hugely successful debut album Texas Flood with a string of albums and successful tours. Vaughan became regarded as one of the greatest guitarists of his era. But in August of 1990, he was killed when his helicopter crashed into the side of a ski hill shortly after takeoff. Double Trouble didn't just lose their friend and collaborator. They also lost the central attraction of their show. Sure, they worked on other projects in the future, but the work they did with Stevie Ray Vaughan was never truly topped. Number 6. Hanoi Rocks. Finnish band Hanoi Rocks looked set to be the next mainstay of the 80s rock scene, but in 1984 it all came crashing down in a very sudden fashion.
All these broken dreams have made me see.
Their drummer, Nicholas Dingley, better known as Razzle, was at a party when he and Motley Crue singer Vince Neil decided to go on a beer run. Neil was driving, and like Razzle, he too was highly intoxicated. On the way back from the liquor store, they suffered a collision with another car that killed Razzle instantly. The two occupants of the other car suffered brain damage.
Don't you ever leave me, baby.
This shock totally killed Hanoi Rock's push for global success, and they disbanded shortly after. They did eventually reunite in the 2000s, but the magic was gone.
Don't you ever leave me now.
Number 5. Thin Lizzy. Irish rockers Thin Lizzy were truly one of the most electric live acts of their time, known for crafting anthemic songs with killer riffs.
They were asking if you were around, how you was, where you could be found.
Right at the center of their dual lead guitar lineup was bassist and singer Phil Lynott.
The boys are back in town, the boys are back in town.
He was the classic rock and roll frontman, leather pants and all, but he also consistently struggled with substance use disorder, something that threatened to derail the band's momentum. The boys disbanded in 1983, and tragically, Lynott passed away in 1986 at the age of 36. They did reform from time to time for one-off shows or tours with a different singer, but Lynott was a hero to many, especially in Dublin, Ireland. The band couldn't truly continue without him.
Turn it upside down. Turn yourself around.
Number 4. Metallica. The story of Metallica can be split down the middle. The time before the death of Cliff Burton and what happened afterwards. Though the music was dark and brooding, the band were a bunch of friends living out their rock star dreams at the birth of a truly exciting new genre. But in 1986, during a tour stop in Sweden, the band's bus crashed. Burton, who was sleeping in his bunk without restraints, was thrown through the window and killed instantly. He was 24 years old. The band continued on, but that youthful optimism was lost, and the members eventually opened up to speak about their struggles with survivor's guilt, substance use disorder, and internal conflicts in the time after. Number 3. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Back in the 1980s, the Red Hot Chili Peppers were a far less refined band than they later became, opting to present themselves as a fun-loving bunch of party funk oddballs.
Well, I dig the dirt and I dig the dust. I barbecue my meals.
During their early years, they indulged quite heavily in the fruits of their labor, so much so that substance use disorder was rampant in their social circles. Guitarist Hillel Slovak was struggling with his own demons, and despite attempting rehab several times, he eventually succumbed and passed away in 1988 at the age of 26.
No one can tell you, you've got to be afraid.
The band were shaken by this loss, losing their friend and a key member of their band. However, they did eventually replace him with John Frusciante, slowly finding their creative momentum, and the rest, as they say, is rock and roll history.
Walk away and taste the pain. Come again some other day.
Number 2. Joy Division. Joy Division's 4-year lifespan left us with 2 legendary studio albums. But just as the second album was due to come out and the band were set to tour North America, singer Ian Curtis sadly took his own life. He had been suffering with a failing marriage, depression, and a crippling battle with epilepsy that was interfering with his performances. He was 23 at the time, and the news left the band utterly devastated. They understandably split up shortly after, just as their next single, Love Will Tear Us Apart, became their biggest commercial success. The other members went on to form New Order, which achieved significant success. But the story of Joy Division is truly a tragedy. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Minutemen. The band looked set to redefine punk before D. Boon died.
Say no picnic. This ain't no picnic.
Echo and the Bunnymen. Momentum was impacted by the death of their drummer in 1989.
Fate up against your will.
In Excess. Singer Michael Hutchence passed away far too young.
I told you that we could fly.
Ramones. Their later years were defined by conflict and tragedies.
24 hours to go. I want peace of the
Sabotage. Fate had cruel plans for co-founder Chris Oliva. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The Pretenders. There might not be a band that lost so much as quickly as the Pretenders.
Such a drive to want something sometime.
Led by Chrissie Hynde, they burst onto the scene with a critically acclaimed debut album and a successful follow-up, but issues of substance use disorder would linger in the background. In 1982, guitarist James Honeyman Scott was found dead after suffering heart failure, brought on by excessive use of substances.
Maybe tomorrow, maybe someday.
Around that time, bassist Pete Farndon was ejected from the band due to his substance use disorder, only to pass away just under a year later from an overdose.
Every night, every day, we'll be together.
This was obviously heartbreaking for the two surviving members. But after a hiatus, they eventually reformed and scored their highest charting album in the US to date, Learning to Crawl.
Back on the chain gang.
Did we miss out on any other 80s bands who unfortunately belong on this list? Let us know in the comments.